Hi, everyone. Welcome today. Thanks for joining us. We have a great panel today. We're talking about Couchbase AI and AI services, AI service offerings that are to come, and just kind of the landscape of AI and where we are today. We have an AI world, and we are Couchbase. We're living in it. We are talking to customers about it, talking to analysts about it. So we wanted to bring this panel together today to kind of help navigate some of those big questions. So we have Rahul Pradhan. He is our VP in charge of AI and data at Couchbase. And then Kieran Maddie, he is our engineering lead for AI services. And to kick things off is Jeff Morris, Vice President of Product Marketing at Couchbase. So really hoping for a great discussion today. Again, please use the chat. We'd love to hear where you're from and maybe what you're up to. And if you have questions, we're going to set aside about 10 minutes towards the end for some Q&A. So please ask us your questions, and hopefully we can get to those after the discussion as well. So with that, I will kick it off to Jeff Morris. Thanks, everybody, for being here again.
Awesome. Thanks, Suzanne, so much. Welcome, everybody. This is going to be a fun talk. For those that don't know who Couchbase is, I want to just do a quick reminder in that you use us every single day, even if you don't happen to know it. When you're scrolling your LinkedIn feed, for example, all of that is cached inside of Couchbase. When you are logging into your favorite, most of your favorite streaming services, DirecTV, Peacock, Disney Plus, all Couchbase customers maintaining your profile there. When you're looking, when you receive fraud alerts from FICO or Experian or Equifax, those are also Couchbase-born applications. When you're playing video games, your leaderboards oftentimes are inside of Couchbase. If you go on a cruise, you're familiar with Carnival Cruise, they give you that medallion that is your room key and everything else. That's an application powered by Couchbase. So like I said, even if you don't know it, we're everywhere. And the airline tickets that you book that are aggregated either through Amadeus or Sabre, all happening through Couchbase systems. Anyway, the reasons why customers pick us for all of that is because we're kind of the combo of a very, very fast in-memory data store that we have roots from Memcached, one of the original key value databases, and we gain the flexibility from JSON database technology, and we merge them together, kind of our peanut butter and chocolate moment, to give us a highly scalable, highly performant, yet incredibly flexible data store. And we deliver that in binary form as Enterprise Edition. We deliver it in the cloud. You can run it in packaged in Kubernetes as autonomous operator, or the database as a service primarily is called Couchbase Capella. And Capella, like all of these products, they share all these cool different attributes. You guys can download the presentation and go through these yourself. But the principles are all fundamentally the same. Customers pick us because of performance. They choose us because that performance drives incredible price performance. So it becomes very affordable to run very high scale applications. They love us because of its versatility. It's got support for about 8 different data access patterns. So if you need any of those specialty kinds of patterns like geographic search or full text search or vector search in this particular case, that's all available to you. And its query language is SQL++. And basically, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between SQL 92 and Couchbase's SQL++, syntactically identical, operationally nearly identical. The plus, of course, stands for SQL for JSON. So very, very robust data store. Today, what we're talking about is our newest capabilities. We announced back in December. They're called Capella AI Services. And the AI services come into play within the Capella family. We often kind of sort these things in the following manner. We offer transactional and operational services. That's the original strength of Couchbase Server and Couchbase itself. A distributed system, highly performant to run your business. We have mobile capabilities with Couchbase Lite as our on-device data store, and a terrific array of synchronization services that go along with that to make sure that the data that you, even if you don't have an internet connection, the data works and your application continues to function. We have analytical services called Capella Columnar. So it's a high-scale analytic environment that really supports analyzing, operational JSON data, which is very difficult. Right? JSON is it doesn't follow a common structure like a relational schema would. So we support zero ETL for JSON to get the data into Columnar, and then interfaces to your favorite BI tools like Tableau and Power BI to create your visualizations. But we also support very robust processing within the SQL++ environment. And now finally, these AI services. The AI services are designed to help you with building and creating AI-powered applications. The new form of them being characterized as agentic applications. And so with these agentic applications, we've added a number of different capabilities to support the whole development process there. So this is basically where I want to start our conversation with Rahul and Kieran is, number one, can you introduce the capabilities here, but also weave in what are agents? Give us a 2-minute explanation, Rahul, of what's an agent and what are we anticipating customers to begin building, given that we're helping them solve the data problems around agents.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I think thanks for the intro. That was, I think that hopefully helps set the context for people of what we will be talking about. So let's dive a little bit deeper into agents. So agents or agentic AI is what has got everybody excited in the world today. And the reason for that is, if you think about agents, agents are basically autonomous software programs. They have the ability to reason, they have the ability to plan, and they have the ability to perform actions on the behalf of an user. So as you think about what an agent can accomplish, think about a typical workflow that a person in a business or an enterprise goes through. Typically, what a business workflow looks like is you interact with multiple different applications. You synthesize as the data from one application into another in order to get insights or drive your outcome for your business. The key thing there is, just an example, if you think of that, think of a salesperson trying to record conversations from a customer in order to then piece together an email trail, documents to figure out what the next steps would be with a specific customer. Imagine that instead of having to go through that, some app can actually give them give the sales rep the information by pre-processing the voice conversation, pre-processing the PDF, driving into summarizing them and giving them the insights that they need, and the acceleration of productivity that brings to the employee is just an order of magnitude. So that is the fundamental thing that is getting enterprises and businesses all over the world excited about AI, and specifically on agentic AI. So now when you think about agents, what do the agents really need, right? So if you look at how an application is developed today, just the process that I was describing about was you have an application which is heavily governed by the experience that that it gives to the end user, so that they can actually go through these complex workflows themselves and move data around in order to make it happen. Now, when you go into an agentic world, that workflow layer is essentially taken over by the agents. So the hard work of actually moving the data around, being able to get insights from the data, reason from the data, is all needs to be done by the agent. To do that, what needs to change is the agent needs to have access to a data layer or a database that can effectively that has the ability to gather, store, process all of that information in real time and give the insights that the agent needs. So that's where what we are seeing, how we are seeing databases and the data platforms across the industry evolve, is becoming more of not just a structured or an unstructured data store, but becoming more of a multimodal, multi-data format data platforms that can process both structured, unstructured data, as well as semi-structured data with JSON. Do all of that in real time, and then be able to actually deliver insights through search and through vector search and semantic search. That becomes the key thing that an agent needs in order to be successful in developing an agentic application. So with that, what we announced earlier, late last year, was a product with a suite of offerings called AI services. And let me hand it over to Kiran, who is the product lead for that, to go into the details of what these mean and kind of highlight some of the problems they end up helping us solve along the way for our users.
Right. Thanks, Rahul. This is Kiran, the lead PM for AIML here at Couchbase. So one word that comes to mind when I think about agents is reasoning. And I think Rahul touched on this earlier, right? And now we are talking about human-like reasoning. We are not there yet, but we will get there. So to help agents reason, it requires good data. And to provide good data to the agents, you need a solid data platform, which you're looking at right now here. So data could be in different forms here. What's depicted here is an agentic RAG pipeline where you get data from your unstructured data, as Rahul mentioned. You have to extract certain key attributes from your unstructured document, which our service called Unstructured Data Service allows you to do. So it also brings OCR to bear. OCR stands for optical character recognition, that you can use if you have complex tables, images. Rahul talked about multimodal analysis, so you can do that and convert your unstructured data into JSON. Okay. The beauty about this component is that you don't have to build any complex data pipelines. The service will take care of that for you to accelerate your developer velocity. So once the data is converted into JSON, we bring to bear another service called vectorization service, which takes that JSON document and converts it into vectors. Again, here, you don't have to use 100 different tools. I'm just making this up, but you get the point. Many tools to create your data pipeline here. The vectorization service will take care of that. And in addition to that, we want to provide you the optionality to use your own model, as in you can bring OpenAI or Bedrock or other CSP provided embedding models here, or you can use an embedding model that we provide so that you don't have to worry about hosting your own embedding model. And once the data has been vectorized, that is, the JSON documents have been converted into vectors, it is automatically returned to an index inside of our vector store, which we announced early last year. Okay, and once the data is in the vector store, you can build an agentic RAG application where you can do a vector search on that. We have several SDKs that we offer for you to do that. We have integration with LangChain and Llama Index, and we are planning to expand that portfolio as well to cover other agent platforms. So you can probably write a tool to do that. And you can use your own LLMs here, as in you can use OpenAI or other leading LLMs that are available out there, performant LLMs. But if you choose not to do that, and you want to co-locate your data and LLMs, you can bring to bear something called as the model service LLM that we offer, which in addition to model endpoint also offers several value-added services such as guardrails, keyword filtering, caching to help you build a performant and secure agentic application. Okay. And in addition to that, we have something called as AI functions, which puts LLMs into SQL. That's a new concept that we have introduced with the AI functions. So you can use SQL++, the optimized the SQL statements that Jeff referred to earlier, optimized for JSON. Okay. And in addition to that, we have something called as the agent catalog. Jeff, can we jump to slide number 15, if you don't mind? So if you have developed agentic applications and you're using the tool usage pattern, you know that there are several challenges that are associated with tool development. First off, you start with a small set of tools and then it just balloons. It grows to tens or hundreds of tools in no time, right? And that makes tool management hassle, let alone governance. So what we have introduced is a service called Agent Catalog, which simplifies that for you. So it serves as a central repo for storing your tools, your prompts, so that the catalog takes care of the management, so that you can just focus on building your agentic applications. And so the way an agent is usually built is you start with thinking about your use case. Keep in mind that not all use cases require an agentic workflow. So it is very crucial that you figure out whether your application needs an agentic workflow. In this particular case that Jeff has put up here, this requires an agentic workflow because we are building a trip planner which builds itinerary for the user a day by day. I don't know if you can see this breakdown here. It's a pretty cool application. We have it posted on our GitHub website if you're interested to access it. Okay, so you start with this application and then work backwards from it to identify your data source. So this is where I mentioned that to trigger the reasoning process of an LLM, you need a single data platform that provides you, that serves as a profile store, a vector store, not shown here. If you're planning on doing agentic RAG, there'll be a vector store here as well up here. So you start with the data sources, and in addition to your databases, you need external sources also, such as AccuWeather. So what I want to do here is I want the weather conditions to be reflected on my trip plan, right? So I need to make a call to AccuWeather. It's an API call. And for my databases, in this case, we're using Capella, our DBaaS service. Basically, I'm using Capella as a profile store, as I mentioned to you, right? You need a profile store for personalization. I want the LLM responses to be grounded in the user's preferences, such as the theme of their trip. It could be a budget trip where they're penny pinching, or it could be you are traveling with kids, as the question stated, and you have preferences for your cuisine, French or Jamaican or what have you, and so on and so forth. And then if this was an agent application that was offered by Marriott, you may need data about their properties, right? So information such as events, entertainment, food, and so on. And in addition to that, as I mentioned to you, you can do an agentic RAG as well, where you have a vector store here. And the pipeline that we showed you earlier can be brought to bear to make it super simple to get the data into the vector store from different sources. Okay. Once the data sources are all lined up, the next step is to basically identify the tools or develop the tools, right? So the beauty about the agent catalog is you can, it's a central repo that stores all the tools so that you don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel each time you want to build an agent application. Okay, so it's as simple as just using your goal or the prompt here. So my prompt here as this states here, is I want to plan a trip to Maui in September. So there's a timeline, and I provided additional information. That is, I'm traveling with 2 kids. Okay, so that goal is sent, or that prompt is sent to the agent catalog, and it helps you retrieve 3 tools, relevant tools, out of your bag of maybe 100 tools or what have you in your agent catalog. Right. So we pick, so that makes it very easy for the developer, right? You don't have to kind of write all those 10 tools. And in addition to that, the way we have seamlessly integrated into LangGraph and LangChain, these are the agent frameworks that we support right now. It's just a matter of adding a line in your code, tools equals get tools, basically, and the goal that you have here. And it will retrieve the most relevant tools relevant to answering this question. Okay, so once the tools are retrieved and the prompt is also retrieved, it's just a matter of generating this final LLM prompt inside of your agent framework and sending it to the LLM. And this is what triggers the reasoning process of the LLM that Rahul mentioned earlier. And most of these leading LLMs out there support something called as tool calling or function calling. Tool calling is a process by which the most relevant tools are invoked, or rather a document is generated which consists of those tools in a particular sequence that needs to be executed in the applications environment. Okay, so let's go through that flow real quick. You ask this question that is sent to the LLM. The LLM goes through the tool calling process based on its reasoning capability. So when I say reasoning, it's a little different than a regular chatbot. You ask a question and you instantly get the response, right, based on the knowledge of the LLM. But when an LLM goes through a reasoning loop, it won't return the results instantaneously. It takes time. Actually, it's reasoning like a human being. It's thinking, right? And there are several architectures available out there for reasoning, such as React. You could use chain of thoughts that LangChain and others support. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. And once the document is available with the functions to call, the application can execute that in their environment actually. And depending on the LLM that you're using, you can do that in parallel to speed up the execution process. But you have to choose the right LLM for that. And once the function is executed, you get all the results from the different function calls, and then you send it back to the LLM to generate the final response. So that's the reason I was telling you that not all applications need an agentic workflow, because you see the number of LLM calls that are made. And keep in mind that I've oversimplified this one. I'm just talking about one agent here. There could be like multiple agents in your application, the multi-agent framework, basically, which is a common practice actually in production. Nobody deploys a single agent. And the agent catalog supports that as well. Okay. And yeah, so that is it. Jeff, over to you.
Okay, great. So great overview of agent catalog and the other goodies inside of these AI services. And I think as we ran through those pieces of new functionality, right, handling unstructured data, parsing PDFs, creating vectors, streaming them, in fact, and storing them inside of Capella, taking advantage of our model service, which is a brand new decision that we that we made, which was to host models. That was a very, Rahul, I want to talk to you about this in a second, which is a very customer-driven activity, and then using the agent catalog to help organize all of these things, especially as they start running, and as you start developing more and more and more of them, as Karen was just describing. What I want to first get into is, because we're already starting to receive some questions on it, is let's examine, you guys, the different problems that we're addressing with regard to why we built all of these services instead of just stopping at hey, we support vector, it runs on-prem and in the cloud and on mobile, rather than stopping at that, which is what we did last year, is carrying forward and taking responsibility for much, much more of the development process, which of course is a brand new development process for the developers, and complicated, as we just said. But Rahul, one of the earliest things that that we realized as we were talking to customers, and that's been reinforced with me recently, is IDC a couple of days ago. I was talking to them, and they said, you know what, there's an interesting phenomenon happening in the market, which is that roughly 85% of Gen AI based projects are not leaving their proof of concept stage. They're not going into production. I think that that's a combination of all four of these particular, or at least three of these problems: the sharing of data, hallucinations and worrying about what the responses are going to come back as, and managing that over time, that notion of agent drift. I think those are still clear issues that are happening in the market. Can you talk about what you've been hearing, and then how we got to the decisions that we did of hosting the models, supporting RAG in a very extensive way, and creating the agent catalog to manage everything over time?
Yeah, so I think though the problems that we keep hearing, and they kind of are echoed what IDC and some of the analyst firms are also saying. It's really about the customer data at the end of the day, right? So when like all of us have pretty much used ChatGPT at this point. When you think about using an LLM or an AI model, you need to prompt it with additional context, additional data, so that it can actually give you it can process it and give you the outcome that you are looking for. To do that now in an enterprise context means handing over your proprietary data that needs to go outside of your own security perimeter onto a publicly hosted AI model, which brings a lot of resistance and barriers to adoption for enterprises. What we are seeing today in the market is it's relatively easy to do a POC on this. You can have synthetic or dummy data and have a POC done with, let's say, using OpenAI APIs, or even using one of the Llama 3 models that you can locally download. What the challenges you get into is, if you're using a foundational public model, then the data goes out. That's a non-starter for a lot of organizations, or most of the organizations, I would say, when it comes to production grade applications that they are building for their businesses. The second aspect is when you think about open models like Llama 3 or the various different flavors of these open models, to actually run them on their own and to actually manage them through the entire production cycle, so that this becomes a core component of your application and needs to meet all the reliability, availability, and security requirements. That becomes a significant amount of heavy lifting for the developer teams, which is further slowing down the adoption or building of these agentic applications into production. So those are kind of the primary drivers that got us to thinking in terms of how do we leverage the technology that we are built on in order to help customers solve these problems. The other big issue is around agent drift, and in general, validating responses from LLMs to prevent hallucinations. And there are a couple of ways, frameworks and ways people have done that. One is RAG, like Kiran mentioned, is one of the popular ones, where you actually will you provide the model with additional context. Again, that additional context is your own data, which you want to make sure you're safeguarding. That's the reason having that in the context or very closely co-located with their data makes a lot more sense. The other piece is when we launched our vector search product, one of the things that developers told us was, this is all great and I can use this to build a RAG application, but the challenge I have is every time my data changes, I need to have a system outside of your database to be able to know when it has changed, what has changed, and then generate new embeddings in order to push it back into the database. And that's one of the things when we looked at the problem of how we can solve it, it seemed pretty obvious to us that since we know that the data is changing or mutating, we could actually make the decision. And now if you couple with the idea of having the models co-located with the data, it becomes seamless to the developer in order to auto vectorize the data within the platform itself. So
Right.
those
Yeah,
sorry,
so
go ahead, Chip.
we're taking on some of that additional responsibility of keeping the agents updated and keeping the vectors themselves up to date as the corporate data, the proprietary data evolves. And then what do we do for the reverse side when the agent or when the LLM gets updated and changes its opinion?
Right. So that's the other aspect of it, right? Like when you think about the capabilities of LLMs, I mean, at the end of the day, these are probabilistic models. So there needs to be some kind of detection in terms of is there a drift from the response? Does the response actually match the brand perception we have today? And there have been cases where chatbots have given out responses where enterprises have been held accountable for what they say and what actions they would have to take. So this is where getting that additional level of detection in terms of the accuracy of the model, providing guardrails so that you can actually have specific guardrails defined for the model to operate in. It becomes critically important, and that's again as a part of our model service. That's something we offer our customers: the ability to run guarded models, to run hallucination models, in order to prevent exactly that kind of a thing happening. All of this, basically, if you again look at what needs to happen for the agent, is all of this when you're in a conversation or within an agentic flow, needs data, whether it's short-term memory or long-term memory, to be stored somewhere. And that's the other capability we have natively within the platform, is to be able to have that short-term data through our caching mechanism to enable them to store all these prompts, to store all these the conversational, and then perform the semantic search on top of it to give quick insights back to the application. So what it also ends up doing, though, is kind of goes back into the fourth pillar, which is around cost. So now you think about a platform that can actually do multiple of those things without having to have different infrastructure. So obviously you're saving on time and not having to have yet another bespoke database in order to run these point functions. But also, because it's a platform that can actually do multimodal data across structured, unstructured, and semi-structured, you are eliminating the pipeline that needs to convert data from one format to another and have it stored, and are able to store it as vectors within a single platform, which just makes the surface area of how much data that the agent has access to be able to search and query significantly more than at a very faster pace as well.
A long time ago, we set up the idea that latency was the enemy of AI. And I think we're starting to see that come to fruition in terms of where are areas, especially if you're creating AI that is indeed customer facing. And that's one of the more popular use cases that we've seen, is creating, let's say, a chatbot on your customer support system. So you want to engage in your user base in some form, but if it's slow, and we've all used Gen AI in some form, recently, it's slow, right? The think time that it goes through is often really not satisfactory to what we want to have happen for a user experience. So I think the good news from the Couchbase point of view is we were already built for being a high performance, highly scalable data store. But this notion of hosting data next to the model, I think, will help reduce a lot of latencies. Or on mobile, for example, hosting data on device that is right next to the user will also help for reducing latency. But Rahul, can you, or Kiran too, maybe talk about some of the other areas, especially as we're incorporating LLMs that we host or that customers may host or that we might receive through the different AI frameworks. Where else can we find our degrees of savings or degrees of latency reduction so that I don't have to wait for my bot to come back and tell me something interesting?
Yeah, Rahul, you want me to take that? Or?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, sure. Jeff, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you used the word co-location, right? So co-location definitely reduces the latency for these chatbots because customers expect a certain degree of latency, or they have this conversational experience in their mind where they're talking to a human being and they want the responses to be fast enough, right? So for that, given our rich heritage of being a database, a KV store, we make a great cache, be it KV cache, a standard cache, basically. And then with the recent introduction of the vector store, we are a semantic cache as well. So the beauty about the semantic cache is, depending on your question, we can retrieve the responses quickly from the cache if the semantics match. That's a little different from the KV cache or the standard cache that our competitors and the leading LLM creators have developed. So in addition to the caches, we have something called as the conversational store as well, or conversational cache, where you can save off the past conversations and improve the conversational experience, because the LLM has context to the past past conversations. And I think AWS put out these numbers for their internal caches. The savings are humongous, actually. You can reduce the latency by 80%, and this cost reduction as well associated with it, because you are not exercising the LLM for each and every prompt that comes through, right? So we are, and the beauty about Couchbase is that it's a single platform that serves as a cache, in addition to an operational store, profile store, memories that Rahul mentioned, the various agentic memories, long-term, short-term, or what have you.
Thanks, Kiran. That's Rahul. I got another question for you. Is how do you see? Of course, AWS is a strategic partner of ours, as is Google, as is Microsoft. So cloud service providers are also thinking about many of these problems and how to help them out. Where do you see Couchbase's position in working with AWS on many of these sets of issues? I sort of have my own opinions that I've been running by the folks I talk to, but I'd love to hear your thoughts here too.
Yeah, so it's CSPs, it's a lot of other competitors who are trying to do the same thing. But I think especially with regards to our partners like AWS, Google, and Microsoft, I mean, one, we have a phenomenal partnership, especially with AWS, where we launched this at reInvent last year. The key thing for where we and even AWS feels this is synergistic is the other deployments that we can go in that typically AWS cannot. And this includes the entire Couchbase platform and portfolio, which can be deployed not just within the cloud on any of the cloud providers. It can also be deployed on-prem, so within a data center, as well as, more importantly, at edge locations and on mobile device. That is a spectrum that very few, if none of the other players in the space today address. And then when you couple that with what's happening with AI, I mean, we fundamentally believe that not just that AI, agentic AI, but it's also all about edge AI, because what both Jeff and Kiran were talking about was around latency. The way you reduce latency is by making the data go not go longer distances and process it at the edge or on the device. That's where one of the key things we have on our mobile side becomes a key differentiator for us. So to us, it's more about a partnership play with all of our CSPs. We heavily use the infrastructure in order to build these services, and then actually actively partner with them to also develop joint solutions to help you and our customers actually solve these problems in the most efficient manner as possible.
Yeah, and that's, I think, exactly as we had offered up, is that cross deployment kinds of capabilities. And I think you'll recall, as we were talking to AWS at reInvent as well, I think for the most part, persistence is something that they decided to leave to either the database services that they already offer, or to the specialty services like a vector store or other kinds of storage, like I said, storage facilities that Couchbase can actually help them support, ultimately across the board, without creating massive amounts of duplication for function or purpose. Because as a multi-purpose platform, we support many of those different data access patterns, including the vector indices and operating as a massively scalable vector store. But yeah, and I think they're very open to a lot of how we've been discussing this. Is they see the compatibility there, and and that we can assist their customers, and of course, Capella being a nearly a native AWS service itself. We use a lot of AWS services that that they recognize as well. So if we're drawing down something of a data store of theirs, we're making up for it certainly in the other operational services that we use, like for the control plane and for other areas of Capella. I want to change topic just for a second. I loved, Kieran, you gave me our sets of quotes, and I think we've covered most of these. But any other commentary on sort of the sets of issues customers and developers are having? Because what I want to move into is, what are you going to make with an agent? But Kieran, I'll give you a second for to comment on on the issue. I had the slide up a little while ago.
Okay, so I think the top of mind for our customers, based on what we are hearing, is about. I mean, this one example that's shown here, right? Hallucinations and trustworthiness, actually. So this is, and going back to your second question about what do you make of an agent, right? So that is that is a thought that is kind of coming in the way of developing agents, and the way we want to solve that problem is making it easy for them. And someone asked in the chat window also about measuring drift. So it's about evaluation, right? So that is something that is a top of mind for us as well. It is not a trivial problem to solve for agents, because as I mentioned to you, the agents have to go through a reasoning loop, right? But we do have an integration with Ragas. Actually, I can put the link in the chat window, one sec, to make it easy for you to evaluate the agent responses, so that you can build any agent, like the one that I showcased earlier, a trip planner, basically, and not worry about the agent hallucinating and spewing out garbage data, as you can see here, right? And in addition to that, here's a fun example where we have the sunny day where we ask a valid question and we get a valid response. Here's a trip plan for Maui, right? Now I mix it up a little. I come up with a fictitious location here, Wakanda. If you folks have seen the movie, the Black Panther, you're familiar with this one. So just like you, the LLMs also have been trained on that data since it's public information. So if you put in a request or a prompt around creating a trip plan for Wakanda, it will actually, we have tested this out, and you can test this out as well, where it will create a trip plan for a fictitious location. And the way you can detect this and probably correct it as well is using a tool like Ragas. We have an integration with it, as I mentioned to you earlier, and the blog is right here. And that will give you the confidence to build the application similar to this trip planner and deploy it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kiran. So as we've all been seeing, right, I think there's a high degree of interest in wanting to explore agents, build them, and yet, as we're also seeing, production deployments of them are rolling out slowly, right? I feel like we're at the stage where we need one of those great next ideas to really pop before we start seeing, a similar sort of explosion of agentic applications. So I'm operating very much as I talk to my peers. I talk to all of the analyst firms across, a variety of the big ones like Gartner Forrester, the developer focused ones like 451, the intelligence ones like IDC and IDG. Talk to everybody, and we're still in that state of trying to come up with what's that ultimately killer use case going to be that's going to exemplify what the downstream things we can build after we exhaust this chatbot idea, right? Is talking to AI about what I can make, or talking to AI about about a travel plan or other things. One of the suggestions that we've received is focus on human workflows, right? The things that people do and that an agent might be able to take up on. So I like that basic idea. Certainly, we have in the chat a sub theme of healthcare is a terrific area where agentic applications could be very, very useful. My own experience was, talking to my PCP, he says, "Oh yeah, I use AI to examine blood test results and give a narrative as to how I should describe it back to patients." And I was kind of surprised by that because I wasn't expecting that to have advanced so far. But we also have a customer named Soft Acuity who is building basically a smart operating room, and what they're creating is basically like a television-like device that is super outfit with additional cameras and microphones and to see the action that's going on in the operating room. They're making it in the form factor of a TV set because it's so that it can be readily installed inside of an operating room without having to re-architect the whole thing. And there's some really, really interesting problems that they're trying to address, like how much looking at what the surgeon's toolkit is, that their instruments that they're using, that they lay them out, is that laid out efficiently? Thinking about what the anesthesiologist is doing, thinking about how much pressure is being applied, using a scalpel. Those kind of things can be gleaned out of from camera work. But the other interesting thing that the customer highlighted for me was, well, you have to remember that all of the interactions that are happening and things like authentication, I really know who this surgeon is, even though they're behind a mask, and even and whatnot, because they can't authenticate themselves physically. They need to authenticate themselves either using facial recognition or a combo of that and voice recognition at the same time. So they're building that kind of decision process into this smart operating room. And of course, surgeons are a little bit vain, so they're also rolling in the personalization. So the surgeon's Spotify playlist comes with them and goes from OR to OR to OR. And that's true of every participating member in the activity. So really, really clever kind of use case there. And and again, I wasn't expecting it to pop out of, because and look at the audience here too, that I wasn't expecting that to pop out as healthcare being one of the primary drivers of this kind of activity. But you really think about human workflows, that makes sense. So I like that one a lot. And just a plug for Capella, it's HIPAA compliant, it's ISO compliant, it continues to gain all of its associated certifications in both the security, privacy, how we're handling data, how we handle all the processes that are going on. And all of these AI services will carry forward and adopt those things as well. So addressing those earlier needs of, I need to make sure that I keep my private data private so that that may end up defining me and my organization, right? The differentiation I have is the data that I have. I was talking to an automotive parts manufacturer who said, I know everything about every car that was ever manufactured. That's my goal. I can't share that with AI because then I lose that advantage. I think that's one of the key areas where that we can help our customers with, is that handling private data, the things that you deem as being very, very valuable to your organization, yet still allowing it to participate in your AI activities. That's one of those co-hosting benefits that we've been describing. And finally, so worry about cost, worry about latency and performance and agentic drift and avoiding hallucinations. I think we're covering those bases fairly well. And now, right, the things that I'd love my colleagues kind of take is, what else are we going to be able to build with this agentic platform or agentic AI? And because we are seeing opportunities across the board. I like the fact that healthcare is the #1 thing that we just put up here. But where else? And what's the best idea? So I shared that smart operating room is my best idea. What's the best idea either one of you guys have had as a use case for building agents and using something like our platform here?
So one of the use cases I've heard about, and there are multiple different versions of those, is really capturing the output of a phone call or a video conversation, synthesizing it, processing it, converting that information at the end of it into a JSON somewhere that is already stored in a database that's vectorized, and then being able to do your analysis or what have you, whatever workflow that needs to get implemented, done it on behalf of the user through an agent. Is that to me, that use case can span so many different verticals and industries, and can really accelerate human productivity as well.
Mm-hmm. Kieran, any thoughts on a clever use case from your standpoint?
Yeah, there's one use case. It's not me, actually. My son loves it, actually, and it's a use case around searching. So you can build an agent that does visual search, right? So Samsung supports this capability called circle to search. So and something that we can support, actually, because we are a DB for the mobile. And the product catalog is stored in us, right? So you can circle something, look up, do a similarity search on the product catalog, all within your mobile device, right? So the phone that we have currently does not have a Vector DB on board, but yeah, that would be a cool use case. So we're not just thinking about the cloud, we're thinking about the edge deployment, edge AI scenarios as well, which is something that differentiates us. Jeff, I want to make one more point actually on the healthcare topic that you had raised. So if HIR is a standard, I think folks in the audience know about this who have some healthcare background. If HIR is a standard that is based on JSON or XML, actually, and that's used for exchanging information between the healthcare providers. So with Couchbase, once the data is stored in Couchbase, you don't need any complex ETL actually to convert it to JSON. So that is something that will speed up the application development process, although we may not recognize the value that easily. But yeah, I wanted to put it out there.
Yeah, I think that's excellent, Kieran. Thank you. And yes, a lot of the activities. One of our earliest demos, I was trying to see if my slide was going to play its picture. One of our earliest examples was we built a mobile application that actually is available in the App Store right now, and that takes the camera of your iPhone or your iPad and recognizes pieces of produce. If we show it a picture of produce, it says, oh, that's a grape, and puts it in his shopping cart. But the principle of the whole thing was basically visual search, right? See it, recognize it, find it in your own information, and then invoke some kind of action. And in our case, throw it in the shopping cart. But the other examples that we were coming up with were, very much in this, human workflow kind of idea that we would have that if you're walking through an airport and it recognizes you as I'm going through TSA, it doesn't necessarily want to give away that they know exactly who I am, and they do. They just want to say, oh, the flight to San Francisco is over that way, and point me to where I want to end up going. It's not obtrusive, but it's a helpful kind of feature that's that could be possible here. So here's my plea to everybody as we wind down. My biggest thing for everybody to consider and keep working on is come up with, and we've had some really great suggestions here. Matt and Brian and Rick have all been really great here in the chat about suggestions of what we could be doing. Because as we, all three of us here have been conducting advisory board meetings, have been going out in the field and trying to call out actually what those clever human workflow kinds of activities are going to end up being when you're building agents. And so we want to help you and help everyone build these kind of things. So as you're thinking of them, right, drop us a line and let us know, because we can assist certainly in the creation of these. The way that I pose it is I have one of my daughters is an actor. She's great at improv, and always think of the yes and, what's the next adjacency that you can create as a feature inside of your application. For Kieran's application, the travel app that he was showing, one of the adjacencies was, well, why don't you look into my my pictures from my trip and automatically send postcards in some form, digital or even physical, to my family members who are not on the trip, and do that, generate it automatically for me. That's a clever idea. Or when I'm booking the travel, how about sending me a video of the accommodations and what it's going to look like when I'm there, so that I can assess whether I want to be there with my family or not. Or perhaps recognize, I'm a music buff, recognize that one of my favorite bands is playing in the city that I'm going to be in. So get me the tickets, get me the babysitter, and then go and allow me to have a good time that particular evening. So keep thinking yes and, keep thinking adjacency, and keep rolling with this idea of agentic applications. Glad everybody liked this this deck, but we'll be in touch some more. Suzanne, I think we're there.
Awesome. Hey, thanks everybody. There were a few different links that were mentioned. So I put those in the docs section to the right so that everybody has access to those, including the deck from today. I just want to make sure that you have access to that. And again, I think Jeff and Rahul and Kieran may have some contact information in their profiles. Again, would love to hear from you about the types of things that you're building, or the types of things that you think could be built in the next generation, in the next few months, in the next year. Would love to hear about that. So thanks everybody. The use cases were amazing. Overview, thanks so much. Super appreciate this panel. And with that, I will say goodbye and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.